Ultimate is an adjective that I have strictly reserved for taco bars, frisbees, and warrior. But we're adding one to the list because I've got this guitar practice session that I want to share. I get a lot of requests for like backing tracks, how to use backing tracks, and how to kind of like use the best time of your practice. So I kind of came up with this as just a way to tie in like a lot of the stuff that I always kind of preach on this channel. So it's going to be a bit of like an intermediate to advanced lesson probably, because there's like a lot of information that we can kind of like incorporate into this one lesson and the accompanying backing track, which I will link to you below. So basically what it is going to help you solo in absolutely any key, making key changes, seeing how chords work with each other, and essentially you're going to play pretty much every chord there ever is. The Circle of Fifths video is another one that's going to be linked here that we're going to kind of talk a little bit about. We're also going to talk about chord scales and harmonizing the major scale specifically with extended chords, and really just kind of like just being an all-around rock master in a challenging and musical way. So basically what the backing track is, we're going to go through all 7 main chords in one key. It's going to start with C, which, you know, most things do, and the Circle of Fifths, which we'll talk more about specifically later. It's at the top, right? Because there's no sharps or flats. So there's 7 chords in C: C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor, B diminished, and back to C. Okay, so the 1, 4, 5 are major, the 2, 3, 6 are minor, and the 7 is diminished. You might want to know that if you want to practice to this. You don't necessarily need to, but is one way that you can incorporate this into this track. So what I'm going to start out doing is I'm going to play all 7 of those chords in order. And it's really just kind of like a very bare acoustic track, almost kind of bossa nova-ish style to leave a lot of space to solo over. And the way it's going to sound is like this. It's going to start with the C, the 1 chord, to the 2 chord, to the 3 chord. You got it. 4, 5, 6, 7, and back to 1. Now where it gets interesting is right after that, so that's, you know, if we count this, each chord as a bar, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. If each chord is a bar, that's 8 bars that you can practice any kind of lead stuff. At the end of this video, I'm going to kind of show just a few examples of how you can maybe practice over this track. But until we get there, really, every chord is a bar. So each section is going to be 8 bars in the key of C. Now after that, we're going to jump to the closest key to the key of C, and that's where the Circle of Fifths comes in. A fifth of whatever key you're in is generally going to be one of the closest keys to it. It's only going to be 1 note difference if we're going forwards. Again, you can go backwards and forwards and stuff like that. Anyways, that's another story. But we're going forwards through the Circle of Fifths. So you just take whatever key this is, C, D, E, F, G, and then we're going to repeat the same thing running through a chord scale in the key of G. Okay? So after we go through C's, it's going to go to a C, then G. And then the whole thing starts over. The 1 chord on G, the 2 chord, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and back to G. And then instantly it's going to go to a fifth of G. Then it's going to go to D. Okay? And it's going to run through the whole thing in D, and it's going to keep going over and over again until eventually you get back to C. And it's actually going to go through a couple different times. And the thing about the backing track is it goes through 4 complete times, and each time lasts between 3 and 4 minutes, right? And basically the first couple times around, I'm going to call out what key I'm in. So I'm going to start off saying C, right? And then when we go through that, whatever the next fifth is, I'm going to call out the key that it starts on. I'll be like G. We'll go through that. Then I'll be like D. Then A. So basically the first few times around, it's going to be a guided thing where if you get lost, it's cool because you can just wait for the next cycle to come around, just kind of wait for it. It's good to kind of do this with maybe a diagram of the Circle of Fifths so you know which key is coming up next if you haven't done it yet. So it just goes around 2 times like that, and then the 3rd and 4th time, it's like a 15-minute backing track, something like that. The 3rd and 4th times, I'm not going to call them out. So if you get lost, you're on your own. If you get lost into it, you can always start the video over, something like that to help you out. But basically, there's a lot of different ways you can practice to this. You have 8 bars to do anything you want in the key of C. If you're more interested in chords, you can follow along with the chord scale and just try to play along. Basically, all I'm doing is for the 1 chord, I'm playing a major 7 voicing. For 2 and 3, it's minor 7. For 4, it's major 7. 5 is dominant 7. 6 is minor 7. 7 is minor 7 flat 5, and then back to major 7. So they are extended chords. So it's a way that you can practice major minor chords along with extended chords in a key. Because that's the thing about backing tracks, and again, like I said, one of the questions I get is like, how do you practice to a backing track? Well, it all depends on how you want to what you want to work on, you know? And I think this is a really valuable lesson or exercise that can be very challenging because it forces you to kind of stay locked in because it's always changing, but it's not changing so fast that it's not musical, okay? That's why I really wanted to make it 8 full bars of what's happening in a key before it changes keys, because then you can still do musical things with it, right? So one way you could use it if you want to work on your chord vocabulary is just to follow along with the chord scale and play the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 1 chord, and then switch to the next key that it goes to and play the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1 chord again, and keep switching. So eventually you're going to play pretty much every chord or version, at the very least one extended chord version of every chord that you'll ever see, because again, it's all 12 keys and it's cyclical, so it happens over and over again. Now, another way that you can practice to it is you can solo over or practice your lead stuff or your arpeggios. You can play with the changes. It's very predictable when those changes are going to happen because it's just 1 bar on C. So if you want to play along with the C, you can play a C arpeggio instead of playing the chord. Then the next one would be the 2 chord. You can play a D arpeggio, then, you know, E and so on and so forth. So that's a very busy way of playing. Now, what I'm going to demonstrate in a second is just one way of maybe incorporating another thing that we've talked about a lot and finding the relative minor of a key, okay? What I mean by that is that minor pentatonic that a lot of guitar players kind of start out as maybe their first scale or their go-to soloing scale. It's really kind of like a hot spot for starting, and like let's say we're in the key of C. I talked about this in the relative minor video, which I'll also link you to if you want to get more into that, is you take a note, C, right? So if I call out a C on the backing track, that means you can locate a C and play in C major if you want, or if you're a pentatonic guy or girl, which so many of us are, nothing wrong with that, you can go back 3 frets to find the relative minor. So if I call out a C, that means C major. Locate a C, back it up 3 frets, and then you're in A minor pentatonic. So I'll have an example of this in just a second, where I'm just playing maybe some kind of simple pentatonic things and showing them change, right? And then you have 8 full bars to play that A minor pentatonic over C, and then it switches to G. And then you've got 8 full bars to play in E. So we're gonna do that right now. All right, so the track is going. It's finishing up near the end of C. And again, it'll start on G, and I'm gonna play the E minor pentatonic scale. G. So the next one is going to be D. D. I can find 3 frets back from D is B minor. I can do the same thing there. A. That's F sharp, back 3 frets. And I'm staying in the same spot. And the next one, E. E, so E, 3 frets back would be C sharp. And I'm just playing the same kind of thing, you know? Just whatever you want to do in that minor pentatonic shape and get really good at that, right? D flat. D flat, okay? So if I look for that, it's gonna be the 9th fret. If I don't want to practice like a pentatonic thing, I can maybe just take a major arpeggio starting on there. And then just kind of like use that as a different way to practice through the track. So I can wait for the next one to come around. A flat. A flat, okay, so I'm starting right here on an A flat, locating that note first, and then maybe into a pentatonic thing too. A lot of different ways you could use it. So anyways, this is one example of like really an infinite amount of ways that you can use this track. I'm definitely open to making more backing tracks and kind of guided lessons in the future. I think it's kind of a cool thing, so I always appreciate all your guys' feedback. And again, I think this is a really, you know, challenging but capable lesson and practice session that I hope you guys have a lot of fun with. And as always, hit me up in the comment section, Instagram or Twitter. If you have any comments or concerns, I'll talk to you all soon. Good luck.